Hello everybody. So today we're going to paint a galaxy sky with some tree silhouettes and maybe a couple of figures, maybe a dog and a couple holding hands or something like that. But we'll start off with our paint. So I'll just go around starting with the black. It's our Mars black, and I'm using Liquitex Basics. You probably have these in the tubes. I'm using from this big jar just because I go through a lot of it, so I buy it in a bigger jar and I just scoop it out with a palette knife and put it on my plate. This is Mars black. And the next color is our phthalo blue. I'll lay it up here. And then we have next our titanium white. Then we have our phthalo green, which is kind of like a blue-green color. Then we have our dioxine purple. And then we have our quinacridone magenta. So that's the colors I've chosen for my galaxy sky, but if you have different colors, you can pretty much do this with anything. Black and white you'll definitely need. Then you could use yellows and reds and greens or blues and just blues and purples. Totally up to you. So that's our paint. I'm reusing an old canvas, so it has a couple marks on it, but you won't see that when we get through with our painting. So my biggest brush today is a 1 inch, and this is a filbert brush, so you'll notice it has a rounded tip on it. If you have just a 1 inch flat with the square end, that's okay too. So as you can see, this one looks like it's in pretty good shape. I haven't used it a lot, so we're going to try with our filbert today. That's a 1 inch. Then I have this 1/2 inch angle brush, and these are Royal and Langnickel brand. I bought them at Michael's, but you can get them at various locations. I think you can probably order them on Amazon too. So that's the 1/2 inch angle brush, but again, you can still use just a 1/2 inch flat. Doesn't have to be an angle. Then I have a 1/4 inch flat brush. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one or not, but I've got it just in case. And then I've got a small round number 2 with a nice point on the end. You're also, for this one, going to need an old toothbrush. You can see I've used this one a nice bit. So this is what's going to help us create our galaxy sky. And also a pencil. Alrighty, so what we're going to do, I'm going to start with my lighter colors and work my way towards the top. You'll also need some paper towel and a little container of water. So I just have this painting container. It has different compartments in it and it's full of water. So that's what I'm going to use today. So I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to come to just my white paint and thinning it out a little bit. And I know I want to start kind of down near the bottom, and I'm going to have a bank of land there, but so I'm not going to paint down this part. So I'm just going to start adding a little white on my canvas, and it may take a few minutes for you to kind of see what I'm doing here, so just bear with me. I'm going to point the light a little better. There we go. So got my white, and I'm going to take just a little hint of my kind of green color. And I'm just kind of dabbing. And notice I'm not dabbing in all the same direction. I'm kind of turning my brush back and forth. So I'm getting this really kind of a light green color. You could do this with a sponge as well. Some of my Galaxy Skies I use a sponge, but for today I thought let's try it with a brush and just kind of see how it goes. If you want to try with a sponge, let me know how it turns out. So you can see I'm keeping the lightest part of my canvas about here, and as I'm moving out I'm getting darker, and I'm just tapping my brush back and forth, changing directions that I'm holding it as I'm tapping. So we're gradually gonna start, still in my green, I'm gonna take a little blue with my green now. So I'm not really mixing it on my plate. I'm gonna let it kind of mix on my canvas. And remember, we're gonna play around and kind of work this a little bit. We can go back over anything we want and add more color. So a little bit of our green and a little bit of our blue at the same time. And guys, if you watch other videos, you know I always pour way too much paint up. I always overestimate what I'm gonna need. So I know I'm not gonna use up all that paint. So when you're pouring your paint, just be careful. You don't need a ton to achieve a background like this. These colors are so nice together. Oh my goodness. So a little more blue and green and less white as we move out our canvas. I really like how the filbert brush leaves the marks. Not so square, it leaves like a rounded mark. A little more blue and green. I'm gradually going to start adding a little purple. So we're really starting to deepen our sky. And you know, if you watch what I'm doing, I'm not really over brushing this. So I know you can see all your little brush strokes, and you know what? It's okay. It doesn't have to be worked and brushed and brushed and brushed until everything blends in perfectly. Leave it a little kind of mixy. It almost has a little bit of an abstract feel to it. So I'm going to keep adding. I'm going to take blue and purple on my brush this time. And our goal here is when we kind of get near the top of our painting, that's where we want it to be the absolute darkest, and we'll add a little black. And same with our sides. Our sides should be dark, and we want to keep kind of the center as the lightest part of our sky. I'm not using a lot of water now, guys. We don't need a ton of water for this. Every now and then you can give just just a little teeny tiny hint of water on your brush. If you go with a lot of water with this, it's gonna be a little too, the paint will be like a little too loose, and it won't give you this same kind of dramatic effect. So sparingly with our water this time. A little more purple. And just a bare hint of water on our brush will do the trick. Getting deeper and deeper as we move towards the top of our painting. Not over brushing it. So if you look at mine, you can see where there's some parts are a little lighter, some are a little darker. That's okay. We're not going to overwork that. So now my brush still has my purple, green, and blue in it. I'm just going to take a little bit of my black right on top of my brush, and I'm going to finish at the top of my painting. Guys, be careful with your black when you're doing this. Black is super strong, so it overpowers very easily. And you don't want to bring too much black down into your sky. So we're keeping it mostly around the top. And I'm just going to barely, very, very lightly touch hints of it down the side. Very light with our brushing here. A little bit of this black goes such a long way. So just remember that. You don't want to overdo it. A little hint of black on your brush. You can always add more, but when you go too black, too fast, too much black, it's hard to take that away. So keep that in mind. A little hint goes a long way. A little bit down my sides, very, very lightly touching. I'm going to give my brush a little rinse now and a pat dry to get all that color out. And I'm going to come back in here with just a little more white. You know, I poured up magenta, not sure if I'm going to add it. I don't know. I kind of like it as it is. Let's try to decide that. I'm not sure. So I've cleaned my brush and I've gave it a little pat dry. I'm going to take just some white now. I'm going to go back to the middle and just kind of lighten up a little bit and sort of brush it in a little more. Now that that's had a chance to kind of dry a little. Acrylic paint doesn't take long to dry. If it's thick, it takes a little longer, but for the most part, let's try a little magenta. What have I got to lose here? Just a hint with some white. Let's add a little hint. Oh yeah. Just a little hint of our magenta. Looks really nice with these other colors that we've used. I'm not going to go too crazy with it. just layering on a little hint of our magenta. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna give my brush a little rinse and a pat dry. I'm gonna go back to my light again here. This is one of those kind of backgrounds that you can kind of pick at and pick at. Adding a little more green. Just adding back a little more of my light green just to help everything kind of blend in. And like I said, this will be nice in other colors too. So don't worry if you want to try this, just use what you have. Use what you have and see how it goes. I really like the turquoisey teal kind of colors, so that's why I chose them for this one. Another little rinse and a pat dry. I'm going to take some of my blue and teal this time and just pick around at it a little bit. But I think I'm close to being done that. We're going to stop there. So before we move on and do any of our silhouettes and detail work, we need to give our sky its starry galaxy. So for that, I'm going to switch to another empty plate. I'm going to dip my toothbrush in water, and I'm going to take a little bit of white, and I'm going to come to my plate here and just kind of swirl it around, a little more water, so really kind of thinning it out. And guys, if you've never done this before, practice it on a piece of paper first and see how your toothbrush kind of reacts. It's always a good idea just to kind of give a few little test flicks on something else first before you go to your painting. So all I'm doing, I'm holding my toothbrush in my hand, and I'm going to rub over the bristles with my thumb while pointing it at my canvas. Taking my time, gently. Some people do this with a paintbrush too. You can do it with the bristles of a paintbrush. I prefer a toothbrush. Turn it different ways while you're doing this. You can go closer and have them kind of condense so it looks like a little faraway galaxy. But definitely practice this first. There. I think that's enough. Maybe a little flick up here. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, since I want to layer on my silhouette, you can leave it and let it dry. I'm going to use a hair dryer. There we go. So that should be pretty well dry. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 1/2-inch angle brush and just black paint. And I'm dipping in my water, coming to my paint, thinning it out a little bit. So if you have really thick paint from the tubes, you don't want to go straight to your canvas with really thick paint. So you're going to need a few dips in your water with your brush. Come to your plate, another dip, and kind of thin it out to a workable consistency. Notice I'm not making a giant puddle of thinned out paint. Just do a little bit at a time until you get the amount you need. So I'm going to make a little hill here. Little hill, and we're going to fill that in black. You can use a bigger brush if you want. Maybe I should have used my bigger brush for this, but that's okay. And we're just going to give this a nice even coat of black paint. And this is what's going to look so striking about this painting, is the silhouette is so black against our colorful galaxy sky. It's going to look very sharp when we're done. So just for time purposes, again, where I'm doing this video, I'm going to go ahead and dry this again with the hair dryer. Alrighty, so what we're going to do next, I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to do my little kind of silhouette. I'm just going to do, let's do a man and a woman. I have one similar to this that I'm going to be doing in a class soon, so I'm going to go ahead and probably use a similar silhouette. But of course, if you look online or kind of Google silhouettes, I mean, if you wanted to put, there's a lady that's going to be coming to my class. She wants to put a mama bear and a baby bear, which will be adorable. Some people want just a couple. Some people want just a girl with the dog or whatever. So you can put any shape or silhouette you would like, or even if you just want to have a row of trees would make a beautiful painting too. So whichever you would like, but I'm going to use a pencil and I'm going to keep my figures slightly to the right. I'm not going to have them dead center, so I'm going to put them a little to the right just because visually it looks kind of nice. So I'm going to do a couple and their dog. So I like to just give myself a little pencil outline first. And then we can go ahead and fill it in. I know this may be a little hard to see, but in a second I will fill it in with black paint. And you can put, like I said, anything you want. Absolutely anything. So I'm just using my small #2 round brush and just going to quickly fill in our couple. And you know, this may take 2 coats of paint. Usually if you want a nice solid black silhouette, first of all, don't over brush. Even though I've dried my underneath painting, don't overbrush. Resist the urge to overbrush. And I say that because our paint underneath is dry, but it's so fresh that if you get that urge to keep brushing in the same spot, you're really not achieving anything, and you're probably going to pull off some of the paint that's dry underneath, and you're going to get a little white spot there, and it's going to be hard to cover. So 1 coat of paint and let it dry, and then kind of look at it. And if it needs more, once it dries, then add a 2nd coat. Don't add wet on wet because you won't get the coverage you're looking for. So let it dry underneath, and I know it's hard to have patience, but a hairdryer works too, of course. Most times if I'm painting in acrylic, I always have a hairdryer handy, usually. just because I'm a fast results kind of painter. So I don't like to wait if I need to do a second coat. It's so easy just to give it a blast with a hairdryer, and then I can just keep going. Look how sharp this is looking with our black silhouettes. So nice. So he's got his hand around her shoulder. So I've added that little, she's going to be holding the leash of the dog. And it's a black silhouette. So there's not a lot of detail. You kind of got to have a bit of an imagination with this kind of thing. Sometimes I'll do, I'll pretend she has a little knitted hat on with a little pom-pom on. Let's put a little pom-pom on the top of her hat. That's cute. And then our little dog. And you can have any dog silhouette you want, of course. If you look on Pinterest, there's a million. So pick one that you like, or one that looks like your dog, maybe. Let's give a little tail. And we're going to have a leash. There we go. So that's our couple. I may touch up a little more later. We'll see. And I'm going to use my small 1/2 inch angle brush. I'm just going to add a few trees in around them. So I do a long skinny line with the edge of my brush. I start at the top and do a little pointy top on my tree, and then I just kind of tap my brush back and forth. To give my little tree silhouette. You may want to practice these before you go to your canvas as well. Do it on some paper, do it on some newsprint, whatever you have. Give my tree a little pointy top, and then I just tap my brush, turning it from side to side, back and forth, making sure I have lots of black paint on my brush, because we like our trees to be nice and black against this bright sky. Let's try one over here. Little pointy top, and then I keep turning my brush and tapping it back and forth, creating these little fluffy evergreen trees. Do a couple more over here just to kind of fill in the rest of our canvas. So I got my little pointy top, and then I just gently tap back and forth, tapping, making sure they're not too perfect and not too symmetrical. Trees are not usually perfectly symmetrical. The branches are not perfectly spaced. Every branch is not the same space apart. Keep that in mind if you're looking for, if you're kind of wanting a realistic look to your tree. Don't brush out the same length of branch for every one you do. Kind of mix it up, tap it in. There's our row of trees. The last thing I'm going to do, a little bit of paint on that same brush, and I'm just going to kind of flick up, almost like grass, in amongst their feet, in amongst our trees. And that's it. So what you can do, once it dries a little, I'm just going to kind of retouch any areas that need a little more black. Not sure if there's a shine on that. And there we go. There's our beautiful starry galaxy sky with our couple and dog and some little tree silhouettes. So have fun and let me know how you make out. See you next time.